Да, вона включена. Ця штука. Як вам редколегія? Редколегія як вам? Вони від неї приходили? Не попав.
Був на від'їзді. Я просто давно пообіцяв там одну подію в Ужгороді і саме мав з'їздити. Вже не можна було пропустити.
It's October 4, Ukraine Media Center starts its operation. My name is Svetlana Shaprenko, and now we will be talking about the beginning of the heating season, the risks and the challenges related to it. And joining us in our studio is Oleksandr Kharchenko, Director of the Energy Research Center. Good afternoon, Mr. Oleksandr. Good afternoon. So, the heating season is about to start within the next couple of weeks. What is the condition of Ukrainian power grid for the time being? Well, the current condition of the power grid is pretty complicated. I don't think it requires any more explanations because the power grid in general works on the brink of its reserves. Now we are able to cover the consumption, but we have no reserves, even the smallest ones, let alone the bigger reserve of capacity. So it was pretty predictable, it was clear long ago, and this is the way we are going to enter the heating season. In case of a good scenario, we go through the heating season with minimum power shutdowns and with minimal interruptions in power supply. And talking about the heating, I'm pretty calm about heating, in particular in the places where I can gather some information. The local authorities do a lot. I honestly think that they do the practical maximum of what they can do in order to prepare the system to the winter and to prepare the backup power sources for the key heating system nodes, as well as power supply and hot and cold water supply systems. And in order to prepare the people, you know, this season is different from other seasons in our history and is unlike other heating seasons during the war, but I'm afraid it will be not the only one for which people should prepare but by themselves. And the further we move along the timeline, even regardless of expectations of significant rocket attacks or not, well, let's put it like this: in case of massive attacks, we have no reserve capacity and we are going to be affected by bigger restrictions in power supply. We are going to be affected by bigger number of hours spent without power supply. But let me repeat myself, water supply and heat supply systems have enough capacity to operate well. Yet another thing is when it comes to apartment blocks. In that case, that statement is not probably gonna work, and in the majority of cases we're not gonna be able to accuse anybody because it's the responsibility of the dwellers of the apartment blocks to make sure that there are backup power sources for their water pumps, so they can make sure their internal systems work even in case of power shutdowns, because sometimes it works like this: the water supply continues operating, heat supply continues operating, but it doesn't reach the apartment blocks itself. Or in many districts of Kyiv, physically, there will be no heating or water supply at the floors above 5th floor, for example. And in case of power shutdowns, it's not going to result in any catastrophes. Even in case of frosty temperature. The apartment blocks are not going to freeze, but it will be still uncomfortable. The temperature is going to fall, and the apartments will be not comfortable to stay at, because you know, when it's about 10 to 12 degrees above zero in your apartment, it doesn't look real comfortable. But again, I'm urging all of the Ukrainians, there's a lot of examples when the unions of dwellers of apartment blocks ensure they have uninterrupted power supply by procuring backup power sources. There are many dedicated municipal programs that operate in the cities like Kyiv or Lviv, when the municipal authorities compensate the expenses. But please, people, do it. There's no one to do it for you. The municipal authorities are in charge of covering the problems with critical infrastructure, at least something they're responsible of, and the apartment block where you live is your responsibility. Well, there were two cities named Kyiv, 15th of October, and Zhytomyr on the 1st of November. This is when the heating season is going to start in those cities. In your opinion, are the municipal authorities going to postpone the start of the heating season this autumn? Well, I think that it is so. Kyiv has its specificities, it's the biggest city, and a number of other big cities. Well, the heating season over there doesn't really start even within a week. To start the heating season in full, to start all of the machinery, sometimes it takes up to 2 weeks to launch all of the equipment, hydraulics, to check whether everything works, everything is in order. In the big cities, it takes sometimes up to 2 weeks. So I think that step by step, the big cities are going to start, and the medium-sized cities such as Zhytomyr are going to postpone the date of the start of the heating season. But again, it's all going to depend on the temperature, because it's clear if the temperature is too cold, the heating season is about to start, which will result in significant surge of electricity consumption that will in its turn result in restrictions. And I really hope there will be no attacks, and given everything that is operating currently in the system, we have chances to make it without restrictions until mid-December, given the weather forecast, and probably even until mid-January, because the weather forecast is pretty soft. There should be no significant frost, significant cold, and if it will be so, and there will be no extremely massive attacks that will be painful for us, we have good chances to make it until mid-January. And what's going to happen next is difficult to predict, but we'll see. Well, for the time being, the situation is like that, and the planning horizon looks like that. Well, you've said that you are in touch with local authorities. You said that the cities are ready for the start of the heating season, but talking in detail, in which regions the situation is stable and in which regions the situation will be more complicated. Well, it's obvious that the areas close to the front lines are in difficult situation, in particular the city of Kharkiv. It's difficult over there in Chernihiv. There is a number of cities in the Sumy region where the complications are expected, but I think that we will be able to put things in orders. That's why the most complicated situation with heat supply is in Kyiv and Odessa. But I mean, I'm saying the most complicated, but at the same time, I recall how much the people do at their work. Like, on one hand, it's complicated. On the other hand, no one is sitting around without doing nothing. But I'm not a ministry. I don't collect the information from all of the cities. Maybe I don't have information about any peculiarities. That's why I cannot make absolute statements that will be more of a question to local authorities. But what I'm seeing kind of calms me down. It gives me an opportunity to make this statement. There will be no apocalypse. It will be difficult, but we're gonna make it. Well, within this year, what the authorities were able to do and what they failed to do to prepare to this heating season to minimize all of the risks. Well, what we were able to do in all of the cities with whom I have at least some clarity, we were able to connect the backup power sources to the power grid, the generators. In some places it's gas piston engines. A lot of efforts were invested in this, and they yielded significant results. It was not easy, it was difficult. We were relying upon the support of our international partners, donors, and so on and so forth, but the majority of the critical infrastructure in the biggest cities of Ukraine is equipped with backup power sources. A whole different thing is that those solutions are temporary. They are not here to stay. Those are temporary solutions that are going to work this winter, maybe the next one, but they are not stable. One way or another, the cities will have to invest in energy security. The cities will have to invest in construction of generating capacities by municipal companies. Well, some are already trying to take this path, some are already running this path. Some are crawling though, and if everything unfolds, the situation unfolds favorably, the majority of the cities will have enough generating capacities within 2 or 3 years to cover the requirements of critical infrastructure. I'm not talking about the whole infrastructure, but they will be able to construct the generating capacities that will be independent of their aerial networks. Well, we will probably make it. Talking about this year, now it's again temporary solution, and talking about the generation in general, we require a lot of construction efforts for construction of generating capacities. Now such efforts are quite limited. The total amount can be evaluated at the level of 80 megawatts of capacities launched before November. That's what's going to supply electric power and heat to the systems. Probably within this winter we will be able to launch another 100-150 additional megawatts of capacity, and that's it for the time being. Are there clear plans like plan B, plan C in case of heavy shellings, heavy missile strikes, intense combined attacks? Well, my name is not Herman Galushenko. You should put the minister in this chair. Unfortunately, I'm not a part of all of those processes. There is one person responsible for energy sector, and his title is minister. And if you ask me about such plans, probably you should ask them better. Well, I'm talking about maybe some local plans of the local authorities. Well, many municipalities have such plans. They have understanding of what to do in case anything happens. So far, it may be not put in writing, but there is the fact of leadership over there in the regions. There are people who know what to do. And in case of significant power shutdowns in the regions, in the big cities, people understand what to do. The companies are preparing. They are going through difficult times. They're running low on their supplies, but they take all reasonable and possible efforts to do it, and they understand what to do. Well, our country has the system of centralized heating. In some countries which are located in the south, there are different heating systems in place. Are there chances for us to switch to that type of heating supply? Well, God forbid, all of the countries that don't have central heating try to figure out how to implement it. If you look at the northern countries, specifically Scandinavian, central heating may there be in the settlements with, say, 10 or 15 apartment blocks or houses. It's influencing the climate on a smaller level, on a smaller grade, rather than the individual heating systems. Unfortunately, Ukraine was not taking care of central heating systems for years. We got them for free, conditionally for free. We've inherited them from Soviet Union, and we were wasting resources that were available to us. However, those resources are unique, and from the engineering perspective, in places like Kyiv, it's impossible to live using the individual heating sources because we're just going to suffocate. Honestly, when you come to a wonderful city of Brussels, where part of the city is equipped with central heating and another part does not, so in that part which is not equipped with central heating, it's difficult to breathe in that part. In many smaller towns in Germany, you know, they've switched to pellets, they've switched to renewable power sources, they don't use coal, but even when they start heating, you don't want to open your windows, believe me, because you're going to suffocate. Even in the ski resorts, it happens like this. The people who go skiing, they say, like, there is a reputed ski resort, but the heating is, say, wood-based from house to house, and it's difficult to breathe over there too. So could it be a solution still in case of massive strikes? Well, the centralized heating system is safer and more secure. It's easier to manage it, to control it. At the individual level, if you try to heat an apartment block, well, Uzhhorod and Zakarpattia, they've demonstrated everything. As soon as the prices for energy carriers, if they become competitive, you know, some of the cities destroyed the centralized heating system completely, based on understanding that the gas doesn't have market price for the population, just like electricity. We have no choice, you know, we're going to get back to market prices. We have no more fat. This story is running to its end, and it's enough just to look at the amount of debt in the gas and power supply market to understand that no resources are available anymore. The government just doesn't have enough time to solve it, but very soon they will have to do it. So as soon as the price come to the market level, you're going to pay way more than in case of centralized heating, even with old tubes, inefficient boilers, and so on and so forth. Everything should be upgraded, everything should be renewed, reconstructed, and so on and so forth, and modernized. But people would immediately see their bills become way higher. As long as it's subsidized by the government, the life goes on. But as soon as subsidies are over, you know, in Denmark, I've been in a town with 34 buildings. In the middle of 2000s, they've pitched in to build a boiler without any investors or donors. There's no one to provide them with money. So 34 buildings pitched in and installed a centralized heating system, which reduced the heat consumption price for them at least for 30-40%. But look, 34 buildings, yeah, it's nothing, right? Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr, for your answers. Let me remind you that we were discussing the beginning of the heating season with Oleksandr Kharchenko, the Energy Research Center Director, and we will continue at 1300. And we will discuss the new play put on the stage in the theaters. Stay tuned.